In this episode of Beyond the Boardroom, Her Story, we go through the word of the year, so some examples from this last year, 2024, and what you can apply to 2025 to make it your best year yet. You've all probably heard of the idea of choosing a word of the year, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you haven't heard about it, it's this idea that you choose a word that is almost like your mantra or your focus or the deliberate idea of how you want to show up in your life based on the theme that comes from that word. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some examples of words and phrases. And hopefully by the end of this, you have a direction of what you could walk away with your word or phrase of the year for 2025. It's the last week of the year. And this is a big deal because we're all thinking of this last chapter and we're all turning the page on this new one in just a couple of days. And so first, in this moment, I want to just have you take a deep breath and think through, wow, what has happened in 2024? I think, we have all these hopes and dreams and ideas and perspective of what we want our next year to look like. And we have this hope, right? Oh, this is going to change and this is going to change. And so much different perspective and ideas of what we want the new year to look like. But let's just take a minute at the beginning and think back about the gap in the gain. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. But oftentimes we're always looking at the gap. So the idea of this is if you started at zero, whatever zero means to you at the beginning of the year, and then you were shooting for 30. So fill in the blank for whatever idea you had for the goals that you wanted to show up with. And let's say you hit 22. The gap is when we go, 22 to 30. Oh my gosh, we didn't hit our goal. This sucks. I'm so bummed about this. And you focus on that gap. Where the gain is between 0 and 22, look how far you've come. Not all of our goals are easy to measure when it comes to numbers. So whatever your goals might be that you're looking back and going, I didn't hit 30. I only hit 22. Just be thinking, how far have I come and what have I grown? Has it been in confidence? Has it been in love? Has it been in patience? Has it been in other things that aren't so cut and dry like a number? So that's the first thing I want to talk about today is just thinking through, let's focus on the gain instead of the gap of what's been going on for 2024. And as we go into 2025, I think a word of the year is such a great way to focus on the intention of the year versus so much with goals and numbers and all the things. Don't get me wrong. I love numbers. I love a good spreadsheet. I very much live in my masculine, but this is the feminine that we get to live through of the flow and the intention and following our intuition. The idea of choosing a word of the year is so much more simple and so much easier and covers a lot because it's principle based rather than focusing on your New Year's resolutions. So I challenge you, if that feels overwhelming and you're not into the goal setting type of thing, this is a way that you can just quickly choose a word or phrase of the year that's going to help you show up differently in 2025. First off, I want to share 3 examples of words of people that I personally know that I know what their word of the year is and the influence that I've seen them have. So the first one is my husband, Shane. He chose the word consistency, and I have seen that time and time again in his business, in his relationship with me, in his relationship with God, in his relationship with our girls. He shows up consistently, and it's in a very calming, steady presence that I've seen him show up that way. And so I'm really proud of him for that. Then I have a student. She chose the word enough. And she explained that to me just a couple of weeks ago, and I loved it. She said, I am enough, I do enough, and I have had enough. So it was interesting because she was specifically talking about her position as a mother and a business owner. And she was just saying, I am enough. I do enough in both of those things. That even in her shortcomings as a business owner or mother or wife or whatever, she is doing her very best. And so she is enough and she does enough. And then the other aspect of this that I wouldn't have thought of when she told me her word was enough was that she has had enough. And she has a hard relationship with someone super close to her. And she's had to set some boundaries over these last few years. And I just think that's so amazing that she was like, I've had enough. And it's in a loving way. It's not in this like aggressive, grumpy, I hate you way, because it's someone that she will always have to interact with. But she has had enough, and she laid out some of these boundaries for her in this relationship. And it is so cool to see her stand in her power, in her truth, in her confidence, because she's like, I've had enough with that. So those are two examples of people that I love dearly that I have seen in their own life. The last example is my own word for this year. And I feel like oftentimes I'm going to share like 20 words later that you can apply. And, they're always like abundance or flourish or empowered, right? Some of these like pretty words. My word this year was not very pretty, right? And the word was no. So I know that sounds really simple, but I look back at 2024 and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like if it wasn't a full body yes, it was a no. And I didn't move forward until it was a full body yes in so many things. So I want to give you some examples of this. The first one that comes to mind is in my business. If you've been following Live Big Little Girl or the Live Big Collective for a while, we made some major changes this year. Like we changed our name. We changed my entire team. Now we're not all over the country. We're just in Utah. We changed our ideal client. I've changed all 5 of my offers to be 1 offer. I've literally changed 80% of my business. The heart is the same, but the logistics are totally different. And so I look back at this word and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy to think that the word no actually influenced just so many of these decisions over and over again. So business, it's been crazy, crazy, crazy to see how much has changed because of this word. The second one is personal life and relationships. There have been some relationships and friendships in my life that I'm like, I don't like how this feels, and I don't like the impact that this has. And we know that so many of the people that we spend the most time with impact who we are as a person. And so I had to say no to some really, really important people in my life because it wasn't serving me or them to have that influence in my life. And I think, if it wasn't a full body yes, it was a no. And I've had to reevaluate some of those things and say, okay, what am I going to allow into my life that's really going to help me become the best version of me that I can, so that I can make a bigger influence for God. The next one is relationships with my calling at church. So in my church, we are asked to volunteer in different ways called callings. And I got asked to teach the youth and specifically the young women. And it has kind of thrown me for a loop in a lot of ways because there's a lot of cultural things in my church that I disagree with and have a hard time with. And I've just chosen to just be quiet and go to church and to just take what is going to benefit me. But as I have gotten in this new calling, I'm like, well, if I'm going to teach someone this, I need to have a good understanding of it. If I'm going to teach my girls these things, if I have to figure out what I feel really good about. And so I've had to say no to different things that haven't aligned with me, which in the past I've just gone, well, I want to be a peacemaker and I don't want to ruffle any feathers and I don't want anyone else to have to question their faith or whatever it is. And for me, just being able to say no has given me so much peace to just do things that I'm in alignment with. This last section of my no section that I want to talk about is, for me, by saying no, it allows someone else to say yes. So oftentimes I think we think through this idea of, oh my gosh, I have to say yes to everything because I don't want people to be mad at me, or I want to help people, or I'm really good at this thing, or someone asked me to do this because they know they can count on me. But as I've recognized that when I say no to certain things in my life, whether it's business or personal life or friendships or relationship with my calling at church, all of these things, every time that I've said no to something, it allows and opens doors for other people and other relationships to have a yes answer that's better fit for them. So even though no might sound like kind of a negative word instead of a positive word, it's helped me kind of sculpt out some of these things that has truly helped me become the person and the human and the woman that I am meant to be. And I'm getting closer to that by saying no to the things that aren't going to serve that ultimate purpose. Speaking of purpose, I want to talk to you now about the purpose behind the word or the phrase that you're going to choose. Okay. So I was talking to my friend Connor, and he was talking about a phrase for him. He uses phrases versus just a one-word mantra. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that so much. And then it got me thinking about how many phrases and mantras have shown up in my life, mostly because of my parents or mentors, that things that they would say still live rent-free in my brain all the time. Or just come up when I'm parenting or whatever it might be, that I'm like, oh my gosh, those phrases and words. So I asked a few friends some examples of words that their parents would say that have made an impact on them. So the first one is, people are more important than things. I love that. I think for that example, you're going to show up differently when your child or someone with you or whatever puts a ding in your wall, or something happens with something valuable to you as a material thing. And then you just go, hey, people are more important than things. It's not important for me to get mad or frustrated with that. The next one is work hard. One of my friend that I asked this, she was saying that her dad would always say that just as they were leaving to go to sports or school or whatever, just a reminder, work hard, whatever you do, work hard. The next one is, balance is the key to everything. And I think that's so true. We could get so locked into sports or business or church or family or self-care, whatever it is. And so all of these things are good things, but finding that balance is huge. The next one is, be deliberate. And I love, this was their family motto. And so what I think is so cool about that is when you show up in any aspect of your life, especially as a kid, and you're trying all these new things, it's easy to just be like, oh, I'm tired. I'm kind of sick of this. But when you are deliberate in each of the aspects of your life, you're going to show up. You're going to go the extra mile. You're going to do it full force. You're not just going to half-a it, right? You're going to make sure that you are deliberate in all of your doings and all of your relationships. Okay, the last one I want to share is from my own childhood. My mom would always say, remember who you are and what you stand for, every time we'd leave the car to go off to volleyball or violin or school or whatever it is. And I remember there were certain times that growing up, I'm like, oh, I'm a Haywood. That means I'm honest. That means I'm hardworking. That means I am kind to other people. And so I need to remember who I am, where I come from, and what I stand for. And so the times that would have been easier to just brush it to the side, or if something was going on with a bully or something like that, like it would be easier to just be like, oh, I'm just not going to say something. But the idea of remember who you are and what you stand for, I would totally stand up for someone who is being bullied, or I would totally stand up for someone who wasn't being treated the way that I felt like they should be treated. And I think situations like this, if we hear it over and over and over again, it becomes a mantra. That phrase or that word becomes a mantra. And again, it shows up in different aspects of your life when you have those words replay over and over again. So bringing that back to having a single word or a phrase that can be more impactful than those resolutions, I just want to discuss how this can serve you as an anchor in your decisions, your mindset, and your personal growth this year. So I'm going to give you an example. I have 20 words that are transformative words, and I tied it with a phrase. So that way you're able to kind of think of what's most important to you. And then I'm going to have some reflective exercise questions that can kind of help you head that direction. Okay. So the first one is elevate. Rise to your highest potential in all areas. Number 2, intentional. Live with purpose and mindfulness. Number 3 is abundance. Embrace prosperity, joy, and fulfillment. Number 4 is balance. Prioritize harmony in work, family, and self. Connection is number 5. Focus on relationships and deep bonds. Number 6 is bold. Take courageous action and make confident choices. Number 7 is growth. Commit to learning, evolving, and leveling up. Number 8 is empowered. Step into your personal strength and leadership. Number 9 is flourish. Thrive in life and business with vibrancy. Number 10 is grace. Approach challenges with compassion and poise. 11 is simplify. Remove excess and focus on what matters. 12 is health. Prioritize mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Number 13 is presence. Be fully engaged in each moment. Number 14 is prosperity. Cultivate financial and personal success. Number 15 is joy. Lean into happiness and simple pleasures. 16 is freedom. Create space for autonomy and adventure. Number 17, alignment. Live and work in sync with your values. 18 is courage. Step out of your comfort zone and face fears. 19 is renew. Start fresh, heal, and rebuild. Number 20 is focus. Eliminate distractions and prioritize what's meaningful. So hopefully that's a list that you're like, okay, if I could just focus on one of those words that resonates with me, like you're done, you're ready, right? And tie a phrase in with it that just means a lot to you, that represents what abundance or elevate or intentional or whatever word you choose, what that really means to you. So as you're choosing your word or phrase, I'm just going to give you a few prompts that you can sit on this with. And if you're in a place where you can sit down and actually write some things out or put some notes in your phone, I challenge you to just pause this podcast each time we have a question so that you can actually take the time to really reflect on how you would like to choose your word or phrase. So the first one is, what do you want more of in your life, or what do you want less of in your life this year? For me, like I said, that's why I chose no. So what do you want more of in your life, or what do you want less of in your life? Go ahead and pause this and just think on that for a few minutes and jot a few things down. The next one is, how do you want to feel? Oftentimes we're focused on what we think we want, but we're not figuring out how we want to feel about it. Or oftentimes we think, do we want the car or the house or the vacation? Or do we want the feeling of what we think those things provide? So I challenge you to just take a little bit further processing on this and just think, how do you want to feel? The next question is, what will help you evolve into your next level self? So the last podcast, I talked specifically on your 2 chairs moment, that you have this conversation with God, that you're really thinking through, how do I want to show up today? Or what are these specific questions that if I could have the perfect mentor in the world, they would be able to answer these questions. And so if you're thinking through, what do you want more of in your life or less of in your life? How do you want to feel, and what will help you evolve into your next level self? I think these are great 2 chairs questions that you can bring to God and write down what comes to you, those spiritual downloads that show up, that you could say, please help me understand this, or please help me see this the way you do, or please help me know how I'm supposed to show up this next year and what's so important to me. So I have a call to action to all of you for listening in this, that I would love for you guys, as the audience to pick a word, actually pick a word, right? And post it in the comments. Because I think as you truly engage with your higher purpose, your higher self, you're going to go into the new year having a strong direction of what that word or phrase is that's going to help you with all of your decision making. So I'm going to tie this last little piece in with our principles to live by. So we talk about this a lot in the Live Big Collective, but if you'd like to go back, the first episode, we talk about the Live Big Morning and principles to live by. And as you discuss your principles to live by and figure out what's most important to you, then you are filtering through where all your decision making is already made. You just filter through the principles that you have decided are most important to you in your life. And I think it goes hand in hand with your mantra or your word of the year or your phrase that you're choosing. Maybe you pull a phrase or a word or whatever from principles to live by that you've already created, or maybe you create your word or phrase of the year and then your principles to live by can support that in that same breath. So I encourage you to start out the new year right by not just creating resolutions that you know you'll forget in February, but that you choose something meaningful to you that will help carry this new direction of you and this new purpose of you into the new year, and to challenge your husband or family to do the same, and even share this podcast with them so that they have a direction and a framework of how they can show up in their life the best way that they can.